Hello, hello. Waiting for YouTube to catch up, I guess. There we go. Okay. Thank you all for joining. My name is David, the Crypto Clarity Collective, and we're here today for episode 2 of DeFi 101. Last week we talked about what is DeFi, and today we're going to go through the question I get asked the most. How do people actually make money with it? I'm about to show you exactly how people earn yield in DeFi, not theory. I'll show you real examples, some of my real positions. The 3 ways that we're going to cover are lending, liquidity pools, and staking. Each one works differently, has different risks, and has different rewards. I'll show you a live platform, Aave, Moonwell, Aerodrome, and some real money. I don't think I can show you real returns on some things because I just traded them out, but we'll talk about it. Why does this matter? Most people either avoid DeFi completely, thinking it's too risky, or they jump in blindly chasing 500% APR and get wrecked. The truth is, if you understand the mechanics, you can earn a steady yield safely. I worked with a group that I would recommend that calls each yield farming opportunity, each pool that you invest in, a job. And you just have these workers that at the job, and they earn you money and earn you money. If we do it right, it's not gonna, you're not gonna retire off of $1,000, but you're gonna be able to make money every day safely, pretty safely. By the end, you'll see my actual Aerodrome locks. You'll see how much I have locked up, what I'm earning, and what the real risks are. Let's start with the simplest method, lending. I want to show you a slide that I made. Let me share my screen. I want to show you this little explainer of what is a liquidity pool. Because in DeFi, it's not like the stock market or a centralized exchange where there are people that are buying and selling and people that hold those books and match the buyers with the sellers. This all happens in what's called a liquidity pool. There's 2 tokens in a pool. So you put in ETH and you put in USDC. And in that pool, the amount that you put in or the amount that people have put in is an equal amount, 50% USDC, 50% US or ETH. So $1,000 of ETH is a little more than a half an ETH right now. You must put in $1,000 of USDC, and that's how it begins. They're equal. And to give you sort of an example, right? Here's some things that happen. We put in 10 ETH and $30,000. This is assuming that ETH is at $3,000. If you swap 2 ETH for USDC, the ETH goes up, and the USDC goes down. That's backwards, right? No, swapping 2 ETH for USDC. So the USDC amount is going up, but what's happening is that we're going to run out. Let's see what happens. I mean, the price has to change, and the way that the math works is a different mechanism that I'll try to show you, the automated money market makers. But this is how it works. These are always worth the same. So now we have all this ETH and all this USDC. This is a bad example. This is going backwards. because as you get more ETH, you would be getting less USDC. Oh, it is going down. But you can see now 38 to 42 ETH at 7.5, 2 ETH, 7.1. So that's $400. The price is just plummeting as the people are buying up all the ETH. The USDC, you can see it's getting less and less for 2 ETH. And the reason that happens is because supply and demand. So how do you figure out the price? How does it stay even? How does it stay equal? And that's where the automated money makers come in. It's a math equation that the two totals have to equal the sum, right? So x y equals k is the constant formula that always works. ETH quantity and USDC quantity must always equal the same amount. So again, we put in 1,000 ETH, a half an ETH, and 1,000 USDC because that's equal, and it always must stay that way. And the price impact happens as the people trade in and out of one or the other. It's not impossible that one pool on one chain and one decentralized exchange can have a really different price in ETH than another one. But there are oracles and people and triage, arbitrage that go through and are watching that all the time to take advantage of those pennies when the price is not in equilibrium between chains and between pools. So it's pretty rare. I don't think that any of us are fast enough to take advantage of that, and it corrects itself quite quickly. That's a crude example, and I'm sorry about that, but just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at. Back to lending. Aave, we've looked at this example before. Aave has lending pools, and the markets to supply to loan Ethereum, you make 1.75%, not too much. But if you could borrow USDC and make money with that, it's going to help you. So people lend money, get paid. People borrow money, pay interest. That's pretty straightforward and simple, and it's crystal clear to see what's going on and how that's working. There's no tricks there. There's 3 types of borrowers. Traders who want to leverage without selling their holdings, meaning I love my Ethereum and I don't want to sell it, so I'm going to lend it and I'm going to borrow USDC and I'm going to trade with that USDC. If the price of Ethereum goes up, then that USDC is going to get me more Ethereum in theory, right? It's a pretty straightforward system. If you want to have a long position, loan the coin you're long in, Ethereum or Bitcoin, and take out a stable coin. If you think that ETH is going to go down, you would loan a stable coin and you would borrow ETH. And then as ETH goes down and lower, you're going to owe less to pay back your loan. You're borrowing ETH. If you borrow 2 ETH at $2,000, and it goes down to 1,000, you don't pay $2,000 back, you pay 2 ETH back. So it's, if you have a feeling, if you want to speculate, if that's your bag, then that's how you would short a coin. You would loan stable coin and borrow the thing that you think is going to go down. Traders who want to leverage without selling their holdings. Again, you're leveraging it because you're borrowing against it. Should that coin drop, your position could get liquidated. If I loan 1 ETH and borrow $500 and the ETH price goes to $500, probably a little buffer, a 10 or 20% buffer, then I get liquidated. It doesn't mean I lose everything. It means that I have to pay back that loan with some of my collateral, some of my ETH. And that's not why I lent my ETH. If you were to come into a giant bag of crypto, you could lend all of that and borrow USDC and buy a house and never look at your crypto again. It's not like a note that you have to make payments. You never have to pay it back if you don't want to. It'll either get liquidated or become more valuable, and you could do whatever you'd like with that lending position. If I look at Aave rates, we touched on it a second ago. I'm using a new browser, so I love that it goes to full screen, but I always forget that it does. If I could sort by rates, this is a Curve USD stablecoin, the highest rate on Aave, 3.25% almost. And people have borrowed $173,000 worth of that. So if you had Curve or if you had USDC, let's see what USDC is trading at or lending at 1.59%. Oops. So if I could trade the USDC for this Curve, and I'd instantly be making an extra 2%. And then if I want to, if I think that ETH is going to go down, I could borrow ETH, and the borrow rate is 2.33%. So I'd actually be making a point, right? That Curve dollar is worth 3.2. That I lend, I'm making 3.2. With the ETH, I'm paying 2.3. So I'm actually making 1 point to borrow that ETH. If ETH goes down, then I'm going to make even more. That's a big speculation play, one that I don't get very into. I tend to lend and borrow and use very, very little of what I borrowed or what I lend that I borrow, and it's usually stable coins. So I want to make sure that my money's safe. I don't want to run risk of liquidation. I will show you a couple of my positions in lending. I need to trade what screen I'm sharing. Hang on. How do I do this? I think I have to share the entire screen. Moonwell, you can see that I have 20 ETH that I've lent, and I've borrowed 20,000 in USDC. So I'm in a okay position. I don't even like to be this close, half, but I have some arrow there too. And that USDC is working for me because I'm pretty sure that ETH's going to go up. So kind of give you a rundown of what this looks like in the real world. Loan the ETH and borrow the USDC. If ETH were to drop and go to 110% of this number that I've borrowed, then this USDC or the ETH would get liquidated. They would begin to take some of that. It's quite a system, and we talked about last week how it's valuable for the unbanked and good for people that don't have access to easy loans or that loans are hard to get, and we want to open this up to everybody. That's the magic and the beauty of DeFi. And if we use it right, it's a really great tool for anybody, even people with the bank right around the corner. Arbitrage, we talked about briefly, people just searching those markets to find big opportunities to buy one coin at a price and sell it at a higher price somewhere else. There's people that have built really sophisticated arbitrage bots that search the internet quickly all day, every day for any opportunity. Sometimes they make a penny a coin, but if they're buying 1 million of them and they're doing it 10 times a day, it could be pretty valuable. Nothing that I've ever dabbled in, so I don't know where I could go from there to tell you more, but I'm sure you can find it on the internet. Let's talk about the risks. We want to think about, what can happen. These smart contracts are all vulnerable to hacks, just like any software. They're going to always have that risk. A good contract is regularly audited and regularly hardened and stays up on the 0-day hacks that are discovered. So we want to make sure that we're using reputable companies that take that security very seriously. If Aave got hacked tomorrow, everyone who's there's funds could be at risk. I have that money in Moonwell, which is not nearly as established as Aave. Is it more likely to get hacked than Aave? I don't know. I hope not, because I have money there. You're earning interest the same way the bank does, by lending to people who need the liquidity, except you get to keep the profit. Your bank takes the money in your savings account and gives you 0.4%. And they make 2%, 1%, 3%, and they get all that. Think of that, how it compounds, and everybody's money putting together what makes banks rich. The second way to make money is liquidity pools. We talked briefly about that. The little example I showed you probably should have waited for now, but liquidity pools are where you, as a liquidity provider, put money in to the pool. Let's see. In liquidity pools, they're just a pair. There's some sophisticated pools that have 3 tokens in them or coins. We're not going to talk about that. That's a little advanced for this course. If you want to hear about it, feel free to drop something in the comments, and I'll be sure to talk about it. But let me see what we're sharing here. Here's Aerodrome, and it seems that we talk about Aerodrome every week and every call. It's a base decentralized exchange that actually is connected a little bit into Coinbase. It's got a ton of liquidity, certainly the most on that chain, and it's giving the big boys a run for their money. So we can see these are the pairs, right? USDC and Aero, wrapped ETH and Coinbase Bitcoin, wrapped ETH and MS ETH, which I don't know what that is. There's a bunch of, so MS is a platform, a lending and borrowing platform, or a real world asset platform that is using the MS header before USD, and they made their own coins that are probably supposed to stay pretty equal with the original one. So this is a pool. Oh, I can't do that. Sorry. This is a pool that has 2 coins that are allegedly pegged to the dollar. So it really should stay pretty correlated and give you a 12.97% APR. That's pretty good. These pools are, like we showed you in the example, people that want to buy Coinbase Bitcoin, then have USDC. They come to Aerodrome, they swap their USDC for Coinbase Bitcoin, and the pool volumes stay the same. You add 20,000 USDC to the pool, and you take out 20,000 worth of Coinbase Bitcoin. So now those totals are in equilibrium. The math of fees and things that come out of that are beyond the scope of this call, but that's how pools work. They're completely trustless. They're smart contracts that work. And getting rid of that middleman gives you the opportunity to sort of be that middleman. That's a pretty great opportunity, and one that I've taken advantage of for years. I think that there's a lot of good things that we could do. Liquidity pools, think of it as like owning currency. You go to the airport, you land in a new country, you take your currency and you go to the exchange and you trade it for another one. That's exactly what's happening here. They're making a little bit in fees and at the airport, and costing you a little bit of your money, but that's the price of doing business. Now you get the chance to be that booth at the airport. You get the chance to be that bank. Let's think about why protocols need that while I fix this screen and stop that ghosting from happening. Traditional finance has market makers, big banks providing liquidity. DeFi doesn't. Without liquidity providers, there's nothing to trade against. It would never work. That's where you come in. You create your pool. You join a liquidity pool. You earn the fees, and that's what incentivizes decentralized exchanges to give you the fees. If we look at the pool again in Aerodrome, you see the APR. You see a lot of things. I'm gonna make a move here. Let me switch my screen. Here, I can do it this way. All right. I want to be able to show you without that ghosting. Okay, everyone sees that? Let me see if that looks right. It does. One more thing. So I can look in these pools, and here I could deposit USDC, and I could deposit Aero, and I could join the pool. I've done that here a couple times on VFAT. Here's a pool with wrapped Bitcoin and USDC on Arbitrum. We're earning 53% there. You can see I don't have much money in there, $50. It's earning me 7 cents a day for $50. That's pretty remarkable. And it's been steady. This pool's been live for a long time. I think that that having that opportunity and having this nice wide range where Bitcoin's been fluctuating between this 67, it can't quite break 70, although it's there now. It's got a long way up before I'm out of range earning nothing. And as long as this pool keeps working, I'll keep trying to find more ways to get into it. So the fee rate, let me look back at pools. We can look at different pools and you can see the fee rate. This is what the fee is for every transaction, 0.3, 0.5, 0.3. These are, this is the Uniswap logo. This is the PancakeSwap logo. This is the Aerodrome logo. So all of these are pretty low price, 2/100ths of a point is the pool fee. And you can see how each pool is doing, right? The total value locked is $87 million. The active, meaning in range, like if you're out here, it doesn't count. in range of this 24% or wherever you are. And the in-range TVL isn't very much. The active TVL is more. And the total TVL, certainly not the sum of those. I don't know where those numbers are from. Maybe they're not actually up to date. But this is the APR for this pool. You can see all of this information in VFAT. I'm going to put a link to VFAT in the chat and encourage you all to have a look here. The things that you could see, the research you could do, you can search by APR, you can search by weekly rewards, you can search by total value locked, you can run it against the scanner at cryptoclaritycollective.com. I'll put that link in the description also, and get into a safe position that hopefully will make you some money. Anyway, back to Aerodrome. Now you see the fees that are charged and the APY. And now if you're speculating that Bitcoin's going to go up and you get in a pool with Bitcoin and USDC, and you're earning that fee, you're earning any emissions, you're earning anything that's going on, and you're also earning appreciation in your Bitcoin. It's not quite the same as if you just held Bitcoin alone. But when Bitcoin is going up and down or staying level, you're earning all of those fees. How that breaks down is another story. I kind of think of these workers or these pools as it doesn't matter to me what the coin does. As long as it stays in range and keeps earning me fees, then I can set it and forget it, and I can do pretty good. If there's a coin that I really believe in, which Bitcoin is one, and Ethereum is one, and Solana is one, I'll peel some stuff off and I'll maybe put it in a lending protocol because I think it's going to do good so that I can earn all of the appreciation. But that's that's a personal choice. I'm just trying to show you how DeFi works and how you could possibly, without getting wrecked, make some side hustle, make some income from it. The risk that everyone gets wrong in all of this, in holding a coin and in providing liquidity, is impermanent loss. The simple example is this: if you put $500 in ETH and 500 of USDC in a pool, you've given $1,000 of your money. ETH doubles in price. That sounds great. Now how does this going to work? Because USDC didn't double in price. And remember, you have to have that equilibrium. The pool automatically will rebalance, and you'll end up with a little bit less ETH than you did if you just held it. That's why I say that it's not the same. And if you think that ETH is just going to go up and to the right, maybe you should find a different pool. The loss only happens when one token moves a lot relative to the other. We want these correlated pairs. I talk a lot about that in other trainings and other videos. It's called impermanent loss because if the price returns where they started, then there's no loss. Or if it dips really low, until you sell it, there is no loss. And that's why I talk about my pools as workers. I kind of just want to forget about it. I want to have a big enough range that they stay in range, and I don't care if the price is going up or down. I only care that we're earning fees every day. When is it worth it? The three scenarios where pools make sense is high fee pools. There's some that are 0.5% or 1% because they need the money in there, so they're incentivizing people to become liquidity providers. Stable pairs, we talked about that one that was that MS USDC and USDC. They're quite correlated, so you're going to earn fees without really anything changes. And when there's extra tokens rewards that offset the impermanent loss, Aerodrome gives you Aero tokens, and you get those under any circumstance. And you know what the APR is going to be for the whole week because of Epoch. We'll talk a little about it later, but there's often extra tokens that you get. There's protocols that come along that want to incentivize people to use their product. So while they're inflationary, they're worth something at the time you get them. And what I tend to do with my aero emissions is I take half of them and do something with it to either keep it in aero or put it in Bitcoin or add it to a pool. And I take the other half and I turn it into USDC, because that's my cash flow. That's my budget. That's the money that I take out that I'm doing all of this for. If I don't take out any money, then I feel like I'm just like have this magic internet money that's doing nothing, and I'm watching the number change. And, I need to pay the bills. That's why I'm doing this. It's not just for fun. It's not just a hobby. I think that there's good opportunity for me to make money with money, a better opportunity than I can have on Robinhood or something else. So I keep looking and I keep training and I keep trying to make everybody know a little more so that everybody joins me, because I think there's a lot to have happen here. The third way to make money in DeFi is staking. Staking means locking up your tokens, sometimes for very little bits of time, sometimes for very long bits of time, and something happens because of that. If you stake in an Ethereum validator, you are a part of the validating each new block of Ethereum. Every trade is in a block, and those blocks get validated by validators that include 32 ETH, right? 32 ETH to be a Ethernet or Ethereum validator, and approve the blocks. And I should write a big video on how the blockchain works, because this is the magic of it. This is why it's such a great trustless system. It works because of validators. It works because of mining. It works because it has to be so distributed to be proven that it can't be bought. It can't be broken. It can't be traded or tricked. It could be hacked, just like every software, but there's a lot of people working to prevent that. And the trustless, zero knowledge roll up of the blockchain is what makes it so, I don't even know the right word. I think it's really, really valuable in that the influence can't come from somebody just deciding to make a change, and that's pretty wonderful. If I look at my screen here, I have coins locked up. I have 3 locks in this wallet. Let's see if I could find what it is. These locks are of tokens, and I think I can highlight somewhere and it'll show what we have here. Here, I have 6,000 Arrow locked for 3 years. I have 8,000 Arrow locked up for 3 years. This is a very small one. It's about to expire. It's 12,000 Arrow locked for 9 months. Actually, the biggest one. It's about to expire. By locking Arrow, you can lock it for anywhere from a day to 4 years. You're given VE Arrow, voting escrow Arrow. And with that Arrow, you can vote on where the fees go each week. So the epoch ends at midnight, Wednesday night, Thursday morning UTC, and all of the votes are tabulated. You vote for these pools. This is just day after the vote. So these APRs will be a little bit crazy. But you vote for a pool, and these are what you get. If I were to vote for, let's see what I voted for last week, Checkmate or chess. This is a game. It got my votes. And if I were to vote for that again, this little position would earn me around $1.87. This one would earn me $3. This one would earn me $1. And I get that every week. So no matter what the price of Aero is, my lock is going to earn me money every single week. And that's the value of locking on Aerodrome. Other places, Ethereum validators, if you stake your tokens, you get a piece of any block that you help write or validate. Other places give you our platforms that have real world assets, and you get a piece of their actual revenue from staking coins. There's a lot of different reasons and a lot of different ways that staking is going to earn you money. And if you believe in a token, or there's a really good benefit, like for me with Aero, I think that earning, these numbers will go down and as this gets liquidated and people vote for it. Usually the APR is about 20%. And I get that 20% if Aero is worth 15 cents, or if Aero is worth $1.50. And I still have all of my Aero. Now, things that happen with these staked Aero is that they decrease, right? So this is my locked amount is 6,000. My voting power is 4,000. If it was for 4 years, then it would be the same. So if I deposit 4,000 Aero and lock it for 4 years, it'll be 4,000 VE Aero. In 3 years, it'll be 3,000 VE Aero. In 2 years, 2,000. That's why this is 12,000 locked and only 2,000 voting power. That's going to keep going down until this lock runs out, and it'll be worth 0. Then I can lock it again if I want, or I can do whatever you want. Just a side note, a pro tip. It sounds scary to lock these coins for 3 years or 4 years, but there's a market to sell these locked tokens because people want this voting power. You usually get about sometimes 70% of the actual value of the locked Aero. Sometimes it's 60, sometimes it's 80, depends on what's going on. But if you got in at 20 cents and now it's worth 30, then if you're getting 80% of your price, that could be enough. You have that prerogative, and that's a pretty active market for the NFTs, and they sell pretty quickly. So you always have that option. I'm going to stop sharing. I always think that it's important if you're locking your tokens, if you're staking your tokens, you can't touch it until the period ends unless you sell the whole thing, which could be good enough. It is for me. Rewards are paid sometimes in the protocol's token, Ethereum. You get Ethereum. In the VE Aero, you don't get Aero. You get the actual underlying tokens from the pool. So I used to always just vote for Bitcoin pools because I wanted Bitcoin. But I quit doing that because the APR was quite low. And I now tend to vote for whatever the highest APR is for the week at the end. And I do it quite close to the end of the epoch. And then when it's over, I trade it for Bitcoin. And then I have more Bitcoin than if I would have just voted there. So you always have to know what's going to happen if I lock. Can I get my tokens out at any point, even through alternative methods like selling the NFT? What happens to the APY? I just mentioned in the case of Aero, it doesn't matter. It matters the size of your lock. So if I have 2,500 VE Aero and the price of Aero is insignificant at that point. Always ask, what token am I going to be paid in, and what happens if that token crashes? These are the things that, you just need to have safety nets in. Like I said, I like Aero. I keep Aero. I have a lot of Aero. But every day when I collect my fees from VFAT or from Aerodrome or from anywhere, I take half of it out and make it USDC because I need to spend the money. The other half is gambling money. It's pool money. We're new workers and opportunities that we can get into. Some big mistakes that happen all the time here is that you chase yields. I've done it. I do it. I still do it because I'm like, well, I can get in this pool for a couple days and make 100% APR for a week or so. Sometimes that works. I'll be honest, but a lot of times it doesn't because I'm jumping into a ship that's sinking, and the token that I end up with is going to have less value than when I started. And now I either have to wait for it to go up or I have to sell it to get back into the pool. And there's a time that's fine with me too, depending on what the APR is and how long I'll be in range. This is a masterclass topic I would love to have with all of you, but it's not for this. I just want you to know that don't chase the yields. Wide ranges are better. Full range is the best. Then you don't ever have to worry about it going out of range and earning nothing. But they tend to be smaller APRs. So I don't want you to also ignore gas fees. If you're rebalancing and harvesting 3 times a day your fees, all of that's going to have, if it's on base, a penny or 2 pennies, or busy times a dime or a quarter of gas fees for every one of those transactions. And piling them up could make a big difference. If you're into the liquidity pools on Ethereum, one trade can cost you $100. Or one transaction fee, excuse me. Be careful, be smart. There's stablecoin pools that have low risk, but none have zero risk. Smart contract risk is everywhere. So if you're looking at MS USDC and USDC, what's MS USDC? I know it's supposed to be pegged to $1, but I need to do a little bit of work in that. I need to look at my scanner. I need to see how long that's been around and if there's viable, real liquidity there before I give it a nickel. The impermanent loss is a real thing that you learn by seeing your money go away and being horrified. It often comes back, and we need to be cognizant that in volatile pairs that aren't correlated, you're going to be heavy into one coin often, and you need to be prepared for that. If all of your money is in one protocol, there's a risk there. Even I use VFAT and I talk about it all the time, and it has multiple different chains where my money is, but it's still all on VFAT. And if VFAT gets compromised, while my money's in a hard wallet, my coins and my positions are all connected to that hard wallet, it's not impossible that through the proxy of VFAT, all of those positions could be compromised. So by no means is all my money there. It's just the place I look first and hope to be able to put my money. I just showed you I have money in Moonwell. I have money in Aerodrome. So there's a lot of different places. I want to, go over again the 3 ways that we make money in crypto. I'm going to share my screen again. In DeFi, 3 ways to make money in DeFi. And once again, They are staking, providing liquidity, and sorry, I am blanking right now. Lending and borrowing. And other than that, there's really, DeFi is not going to make you money any other way. I want to remind everybody that now we're talking about all of these pools, all of these things that are going on. And I want to, remind everybody that we have an easy way for you to check all of your pools. Take a few minutes and look. Take a few minutes and find, I'm just going to grab a pool address from another screen. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find that MSUSDC. And I'm going to look at that. We'll scan that pool. This takes 60 seconds to do what I do before I put 1 penny in anything. This is a risk score of 10. Oh, something happened here. I wonder if I have the wrong address. Hang on, I'm sharing the wrong screen too, I see. I need to stop sharing and reshare. There. Let's see what happens here. Take the time. Collect the URL from Dex Screener or the contract address. Come to CryptoClarityCollective.com and run a scan. Oh, very low risk. That's good. Current price, right where we need it to be. It's been around for almost 2 years. The recommendation is to proceed with caution. Let's see why that is. Velodrome Finance is behind this, so that's a very established team. It's actually all green flags except concentrated holdings, so we got to look at when they're going to be either releasing new tokens or who has what whale wallets. If you look at last Tuesday's video, we talked about, or this Tuesday's video, we talked about whale wallets. Honeypot can't definitively verify the absence of honeypot function. All in all, a pretty good pool. I would consider, if I were looking to put money in, 12% for stable coins is pretty remarkable. Maybe I'm going to drop a few bucks in there and let my US dollars work while they're sitting on the sidelines. Looks like a pretty good opportunity. Next Thursday, I'm going to do a deep dive on liquidity pools specifically. I want to talk about impermanent loss with real numbers, how to know if a pool's worth entering, and we'll build a simple little calculator where we can figure out what it would take for fees to cover impermanent loss and things like that. Again, the scanner, don't sleep on it. It takes 60 seconds to maybe find something that you're blinded to or not considering. Before you put any money into any of the things, check it out. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to add the newsletter to the description. I'm running an offer. I have a book, Your First 90 Days in DeFi, Safe DeFi. And if you sign up for pay for a quarter of the newsletter, you're going to get a free copy of that book. The newsletter is free on Mondays for anybody, so please sign up. Keep in touch. I often put in updates and try to keep up with all of the breaking news, and especially with safety and security and scams that are breaking. I don't want anybody to get hurt. So sign up for the newsletter, either free or for a quarter for 25 bucks, and get the free book. Visit the site, comment. We're putting out shorts daily and trying to get the YouTube channel going, and follow us on X at CNS Planet, CNSPLANET. That's the parent company of Crypto Clarity Collective. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next week.